it's Dean Odell with 7 Gables Real Estate in the Odell Group. Today is Cinco de Mayo, all right, 5th of May. And boy, we finally have some exciting news on the market, not the same old boring stuff. Things are changing. So let's get to the charts and let's talk about what's going on out there in the market. Here we go. All right, so let's start with our first chart, which is Orange County active listing inventory year over year. Well, here's what we got. Our 3-year average for inventory at this time is usually 6,000 homes. We are currently at 2,104. Now, what's the good news about that? The good news is if you look at that orange line, it is going up and it's going up quick. And if you look at it from last year's inventory, we are just down a little bit, but we are on the rise. In the last 2 weeks, we have gained 21% in inventory. Although this is still the lowest level of inventory we've had since tracking began in 2004. But with the rates rising, expect the inventory to climb throughout the spring and the summer and expect demand to be cooling. And we're going to talk more about that. So let's look at the next chart. Active listing inventory, okay? Even though in the month of April, we still saw about 695 less homes hit the market than the 3-year average for this month, we are still historically low. And this chart shows you inventory levels from 2004 through now. But the good news is, look that spike up. We're at 2104 and we're headed in the right direction, but we are far from normal as we spoke. But this is just a pictorial of, you can see throughout 18 years now. Okay, so don't get too excited, buyers. It's heading in the right direction, but it's going to take a while. Okay, this next chart is also an explanation of why demand is changing, okay? Rates started the year at about 3.27%, and now we're up to 5.55. Now, there's a lot of ways to get around that. A lot of people are doing 10-year product where it's fixed for 10 years, then it turns into an adjustable, because if there's going to be a recession, there's probably going to be some help with the Fed and rates will probably come down during the recession. That's normally what happens if you look at things historically. So a lot of people are just going with 10-year product right now. But if you do use a 30-year product, you can see that somebody buying a $1.1 million home right now, their monthly increase in payment has gone up $1,333. That is a lot. And a $1.1 million house, I hate to tell you, Orange County median just hit 1.3 million. That's not even a median priced home in Orange County. So you can see the effect this is going to have in slowing down demand. And if we look at demand, you'll see where we are now in the next chart below. You can see in the last 30 days, the pendings are at 2,154 versus 3,081 last year. That is a 30% drop in demand. So interest rates are definitely taking effect. I mean, we are down 927 escrows over the same period last year. So if we look at that and we say, okay, demand is at 2,154, what's our 3-year average? 3-year average, 2,780. Okay, and we're taking 2020 out of the average because we know 2020 was just a crazy year for a lot of reasons, right? It's not a typical year. So right now we're down 23% from the 3-year average, and that is 626 less homes going into escrow. Looking at the Orange County demand year over year, now this is just looking at a 30-day shot. This is what's gone into escrow in the last 30 days. There's those numbers we spoke about, 2,154 right now on the orange line, 3,081 last year. We are down 30%, but this shows you how the orange line is moving downwards on demand. That is interest rates 100%, because now we actually have inventory going up and we have demand going down. So interest rates are taking effect. That's a drop of 3% in the past 2 weeks just on demand. Let's go to the next chart. Now, I don't normally show this chart, but this is total pendings year over year. And the reason I wanted you to see this is because I wanted you to see that last year, which was a record year for pending sales, and pending sales means everything that's in escrow, not just looking at the last 30 days, everything. If you look at the red line, it's at 4,000. So now when you look at that, you go, oh my gosh, all escrows, they're down nearly third from last year. We have 1,300 less escrows going on, okay? And if you look at the active listings year over year, we're only down 174 homes. That, my friends, is the power of interest rates. Okay, here's an interesting chart. You know, I've always called this my favorite chart, and it looks at the inventory year over year. What's most interesting in this chart, and I haven't been able to say this in years, I mean, if you look at this chart and you look at it by price range, look at last year's days on the market versus the expected marketing time this year. Finally, it's going up. It's moving in the other direction. It's taking longer to sell a house. You can see what's happening here. Demand is slowing. It's taking longer to get your home sold, but it's still a market that's in favor of the sellers, and we're going to talk more about that. So let's go to the next chart, where we talk about expected marketing time. Okay, so the expected marketing time on average, instead of broke down by price range, has jumped from 20 days to 29 days. Look at where that falls in the chart. It's still under 60 days. It's still considered a hot seller's market. But do you remember that the $2 to $4 million range now went up to 61 days? That's a slight seller's market. That's the first time we've seen that in a while, right? So things are changing. The momentum is changing here for the buyers, and we're going to talk about some advice now. Okay, guys, so the market is changing. Finally, right, buyers? Finally. But you know what? It's going to be a long time before you guys are in control of the market, so don't get too excited, because these inventory levels are still at historical lows. And even though demand is dropping, we're still nowhere near that norm of expected marketing time that it's going to take to get a house sold, right? So let's look at what happened this week in our personal business, okay? Our team had 3 launches this week, different price ranges: $1,150,000, $2,150,000, and $1,650,000. After a weekend of open houses, because 2 of the 3 properties were vacant, and the third one we just did showings by appointment, I had over 40 appointments to show that Thursday through Sunday. A lot of demand, right? We had over 200 people through the vacant houses that we had, okay? You guys, there's still a ton of buyers out there. Still a lot of competition, but here's what's different. In the end, when the offers came in the lower end, the 150, there were only 5 offers. In the 1,650 offer price range, there were 7 offers. In the 2,150,000, there were 6 offers. So what's interesting is the higher end is still getting almost as much demand as the lower end, or the lower end is not getting quite the demand it used to get, because normally a house like that, I'd have 10, 15 offers on last year, right? So the combination of interest rates and prices is taking effect. But what's the reality for the sellers? Sellers, you're still getting multiple offers, and these houses are still selling over asking price. But here's the thing. The market's changing, and I'm going to read a quote here from Steve Thomas in his housing report, because him and I seem to always be on the same page. It's almost like he's got boots on the ground with all his agents that he talks to, right? Sellers must approach pricing very carefully and will no longer get away with testing the market at a much higher price. Price reductions will become more common as the rest of the year unfolds, and sellers will miss the absolute best time to take advantage of the market and all its fanfare the next initial couple of weeks in coming on the market, simply because they came out of the gates too high. So sellers, it's always important to have that house priced right and looking its best, and we're the ones that can do that for you. Buyers, things are finally swinging in your direction, but like I said, long way to go, okay? But if you see a house that you like, you know, if you're living there for the long term, probably still makes sense to do as long as you can afford it. Do not stretch yourself beyond its affordability, because the chances of there being a price correction while you're in this house at some point is probably pretty good. Housing crash, not seeing it. Lots of stuff in the news about it, but numbers aren't indicating anything's going to happen anytime soon. Supply and demand still out of balance, still in the seller's favor. So people have to live, people have to move, people don't want to rent. So whatever you're doing, just make sure it's a long-term decision at this point. And that's all I have to say for today, you guys. So we will see you on the next Tustin Talks, and thanks for tuning in. Now, hit the like button or subscribe, Let's get this information out there. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.